Welcome to DVC Alumni, where every story inspires the next. The Alumni podcast where you get to hear the inspiring stories and transformation that DVC has had to offer its alumni. And now, on with the episode.
And we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to the DVC podcast here. So Shauna, why don't you go ahead and start by introducing yourself?
My name is Shauna Mundt. I am a senior historical archaeologist at Pacific Legacy, Inc. in Folsom, California, and I live in Roseville.
Cool. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit. So I found you on LinkedIn because I go through LinkedIn and I snoop on everybody's like, oh, DVC alum, let's connect. And then you look like you had an interesting career. Now that I've met you briefly and we talked, your journey to DVC and how you ended up here at this interesting project, which, hopefully you'll have time to give me a little tour and stuff, is like, oh my gosh, you got to tell more. So let's start with where you grew up.
So I was born in Oakland, California, and I grew up sort of in the Bay Area and then in West Virginia and then back in the Bay Area. And then when I was 8, my dad's job took us to Chicago, Illinois, and I grew up in Naperville, which is a suburb on the southwest part of the city. And I lived there until I graduated high school. I did not have college plans. My dad's job had transferred us back to Oakland. So we came back to the Bay Area when I was 18 and lived in Pleasanton, and I never went to college. I think I took a couple classes at Las Positas, but it's just kind of, I was 18. I wanted to party and go to dead shows and, not do anything responsible. So, but I ended up working in restaurants for a long time. And then I I got a job where my dad worked at Kaiser Air in Oakland, California. They're a fixed base operator, an FBO. So they do private aircraft management and charter flights. And I took a job there as the receptionist, and that led to a job in customer service, which led to a job in flight operations. And I became one of their schedulers and dispatchers. So I was, someone who helped with, managing their 15 aircraft and, 30 plus crew members. And I did that until, I was probably about 30. And then I suffered vision loss. Oh. And I've been a type 1 diabetic since I was 9, and I had some complications from that. And I became legally blind and had to do all these eye surgeries and ended up not being able to do my job in aviation anymore. And so I went on disability and volunteered for a couple of years doing stuff, but I couldn't drive. So I was sort of limited. I had to go where I could get a ride or where I could take the bus. Mm-hmm. And then after a couple of years, I was just so bored. I needed something to do. So I enrolled at DVC and I took Spanish, Psych 101 because it was a general ed class, and a PE class. And I really had no direction. I had no idea what I was going to do or what I wanted to do. I just needed to keep busy and I could take the bus to DVC. So that was helpful. And that just sort of snowballed into, thinking I wanted to become an early childhood educator and get a degree doing that. But then my Spanish classes, every chapter of our book had a section on a specific country. And it talked about, the other languages they spoke other than Spanish, the type of food they ate, their cultural traditions like dancing and, clothing and things like that, and which is very anthropological. And I became very interested in anthropology and decided that I wanted to be an anthropologist and set my sights on UC Berkeley. And I think after I spent 3.5 years at DVC, it took me a year and a half to kind of figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and that's a typical story at DVC is like, and that's the thing I keep hearing. And the thing I encourage the folks there, it's like, if your first answer when you show up at DVC is, I don't know what I'm doing, you're in the right place. So you ended up transferring to Berkeley. How did you find that process? Did you get a lot of help or did you have to figure it out on your own?
No, I had a ton of help. Rain was I don't remember her last name, but she was one of my counselors at DVC and she was amazing. And I went through that, the transfer program, which made it super easy. It also helped that I was on disability and very poor. So I, I qualified for all of the services, right? I qualified for all the financial services, all the social services, that really, helped me do this. I applied for scholarships and, I had a lot of support from the staff at DVC and then they sort of outside programs that they connected me to.
Yeah. And I'm sure that if we look back through the foundation records, you got a lot of scholarships from us because that's where a lot of them were, which that's why we do that, is because it's to help people that, that need to move up in the world.
Yeah.
So we'll get back. So back at DVC, so you found your time, because you mentioned before we started that you loved your time at DVC.
I did.
Talk a little bit about that. I mean, kind of like, was it the culture and the kind of the people you hung out with, or what?
All of it. I'm going back to college at 35. I mean, I know people do that, but like as an individual, like that was scary. Plus I was, legally blind, and, I had vision issues, and I had to have assistance from the, assistance program to have some of my materials, made accessible. And so it was scary, right? I didn't, know what to expect, but the faculty at DVC was incredible. The counseling department at DVC was incredible. Everyone was like really supportive, and they made me feel very supported, and they made everything easy. Mm-hmm. It just felt very easy. I didn't feel like I was doing it by myself, which was, great. And, I made some friends there, some of whom were closer to my age, some of whom were much younger, and some of those people I still keep in touch with. Like a woman I met at my second semester in a PE class. I think she was 16 or 17 when we met, and it's 15 years later, and we're still friends. Mm-hmm. I went to her wedding, and all this stuff. So just everything about DVC, it was just such a positive experience. And I was also I helped sort of reestablish the Pan-African Union, which is the Black Student Union. So I guess there had been the Pan-African Union, and then it kind of sort of didn't have a lot of engagement. And a couple of the people who were on the, in the leadership positions were transferring out. And so my girlfriend asked me if I would come to this meeting, and I said, sure. And they were like, there was 4 of us there. And so I ended up being the secretary. So if anyone wants to know how a white girl ended up a secretary of the Black Student Union, that is how that happened. But that was a really great experience. And I think it taught me leadership skills. It taught me, it really helped with diversity. And it helped with learning how to actively listen rather than talk all the time, because I like to talk. So
I'm struck by a lot of that, and I have to shut the hole in the front of my head.
Yeah.
Especially with my wife, it's kind of like, okay, yes. So I'll stop talking now. So anyway, but were there any other experiences at DVC? Because so I do see people that are involved in clubs for a variety of reasons. Some of them it's purely, they want it for the resume. And then there's some that do it because it's really something they strongly believe in, and they're looking for that tribe or that group cohesion that comes with being in a club. So you end up with this really strong, one of the learning communities at DVC is Puente, and I keep hearing about it all over the place. And it's just like, wow, so yeah, it's one of those things where I really think being involved in the learning communities and then being involved in a club or clubs so a lot of the kids there, and they are kids, come on.
Right.
Is they're, involved in 2, 3, 4, 5 clubs. And I don't know how they have the time. Plus they're carrying like 18 units or something like that. And I'm just like, that just makes me exhausted listening to them. But, well, cool. So you were working on the process of getting from DVC to Cal, and how did you find that process? Did you find it like fairly, it's involved, but did you feel like it was really something that was working for you? And did you feel like when you got to Cal that you were prepared?
I did. Yeah, I absolutely did. I felt, I felt ready. I did really well at DVC. It probably helped that I didn't have to work, but I got out of there with a 4.0 GPA. Wow. And was able to, I felt ready when I went to UC Berkeley. And like I mentioned before, the process to getting there was, sort of, I had a lot of help, right? I didn't feel like I did it by myself. And I think if I had to navigate all of that by myself, I don't know if I would have been as successful. But the support from DVC was great. Mm-hmm. But I want to go back real quick. You asked me what other things I was involved in at DVC. One of my favorite experiences was I did the study abroad program to Cuba.
Really?
With Dr. Lenore Gallen.
You gotta talk.
Yeah,
Come on.
That was incredible. It was a 16-day program. We left on, I think, either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, or maybe the day after Christmas. It was around Christmas time. I missed Christmas that year.
Well, not really, but yeah. I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm thinking you had a world-class experience.
I did.
For Christmas. Yeah. And it's like, you could have been at home eating turkey and opening presents. Or
right?
So,
And it was 2011. So, the Cuba was not open to, American travelers. So we went on an educational visa. And we also brought educational supplies to a school at one of the towns down there. We brought some, like clothes and stuff for mothers and newborns at a maternity hospital. So it was sort of like a philanthropic trip. And that was how we were allowed to go. Yeah. And there was about 30 students. And then Lenore Gallen was the leader, and she'd been leading that study abroad for, I think that was her 7th or 8th year. And it was incredible. We started in Havana. We had a tour guide. His name was Jesus Noguera. He's fantastic. I still keep in touch with him. And we did Havana, and then we flew down to Santiago, which is in the southeastern part of the island. Mm-hmm. And then we took a tour bus, and we drove basically up through the island and back to Havana. And it was incredible. We visited a performing arts school. We went to the medical school down there, which is like the big Latin American medical school. And we actually met one of the American students. So American students can come study at that school for free. But one of the caveats is when they return to the United States, they have to perform community service. So they have to go, it's like pro bono for lawyers. Yeah. So they have to go back to, sort of disenfranchised communities or their own communities and, provide free medical care and resources and stuff. But it was amazing. I got to ride a horse through a tobacco field at sunset.
Oh my.
When we were in Viñales, we had brought some educational supplies for one of the schools, and the community had a big party for us. There was like food and cake and dancing and music, and like the Cuba was an incredible experience. Like I have some street art that I bought at a Santeria festival hanging on my wall at home. It was definitely one of the highlights of my life, is being able to go there. And the only reason I could go there was because of DVC.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Well, and again, you didn't really miss Christmas.
No, I had a different Christmas.
Well, yeah. And it's like, that's definitely a world-class experience.
For sure.
It's just, and it's one of that'll live on with you forever. So it's just, that's spectacular.
Yeah, that's great.
So, so you got a chance to do that. You transfer to Berkeley. You then do your work at Berkeley. You graduate there. Then you went on and got a master's at, and I didn't have
San Jose State.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
San
very
Jose
much.
State,
And now, I had my notes and they're floating around in there someplace. But you also had so basically you fell in love with anthropology and archaeology. Yeah. And and that's the part that caught my attention. I didn't really, the other part of it was kind of like just almost like a footnote, which I guess it's like you have two sides of your life. You have before I lost my vision and now I've got to live with this. So, so talk a little bit about kind of like that journey and what that's been like going through all the various different internships and things like that you've done. And how did you find the internships?
I did a couple of internships when I was at Berkeley. I did one at the Phoebe A. Hearst Museum. It was at one of their offsite storage facilities where I got to package up baskets, Native American baskets. Oh. So I learned how to do that. And then I had an internship at the Oakland Museum of California, where I also worked in their offsite storage facility and I assisted with inventory and packaging stuff and, cataloging. I don't remember how I got those.
Okay. Well, okay. So let's go back to those for a minute, because I'm thinking. So first of all, I'm really bad when I get into stuff that's interesting to me. Like I like to go to like these old guys' shops that's got all these interesting stuff all around. It's like, oh wow, and I get lost for hours, and my wife will be standing there, go, come on, we gotta go. So how did you? And I can imagine, especially. I'm not even an archaeologist, other than if you looked at my house, you'd think I was one for bicycles. But but the thing is like I can imagine that there's the thirst for, oh my gosh, look at what I've got, and like getting all interested in that. And then, okay, we got to get the work done. Yeah. So was that like a bit of a struggle sometimes in some ways? Or?
Sometimes, but, consider the fact that everybody else that you're working with in that environment is also like that. Okay. And so, you do have these moments where you're like, oh, check this out. But you learn not to linger on that. Yeah. It's kind of like a quick appreciation, and then, you continue doing what you need to do. Okay.
So you get a chance to nerd out for a minute. Yeah. And then it's like,
because we're all nerds in there,
Well, I don't know. I'm not even in there and I'm thinking nerd, It's just like, I would be like totally, oh, wow, and especially if I've got somebody who can explain it to me. It's like, well, tell me about this. My wife and I, we went with some friends over to Rodeo, had a car show. And what I liked about it was that it wasn't like the super high-end car show. It was a pretty high-end, but And the ones that I like are really like the rat rods, which are, falling apart, kind of looking. And, so it's like they're kind of, and there's stuff on them that it's like, okay, why would they do that? I get why they do it because it's cool, but then I'm sidetracked a little bit. But I mean, the thing with archaeology is like, I can see, and we're going to go around this because I was all excited when you told me we could come in here and actually, so sorry, I got completely.
No, it's all good.
We may cut this part. We may leave it. Who knows? So tell me a little bit about how you ended up getting involved with this. So there was a part of your resume where you talked about the Potter's Field.
Yeah, and so that is down at that end of the cemetery, down at the bottom of the hill.
Okay.
Just of course you put all the
poor people are down there.
Poor people are at the bottom.
Okay.
So when I was in grad school at San Jose State, I was living in Concord, and I should also mention that in the from 2006, when I lost my vision, to 2016, my vision improved enough to where I was able to get my driver's license back. And so as of 2016, I am able to drive.
Okay.
So I did have that sort of evolution of that. But my girlfriend sent me a Facebook page, and it was the Potter's Field Restoration Project, and they were advertising a public archaeology day at the Potter's Field at the Martinez Cemetery. And she's like, hey, this looks like it's right up your alley. And I was like, all right. And so I sent a Facebook message turned out to be Joseph Palmer. And I said, hey, I'm a graduate student at San Jose State. I'm studying archaeology. I was wondering if I could come out this weekend. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Please come. We would love to have you out. And so I ended up getting involved with the Potter's Field Restoration Project. So the PRFP, they started in 2015, and it was just sort of an effort to, sort of maintain the Potter's Field and keep it clean, and sort of, the headstones are all these little concrete, markers with numbers on them, and there weren't really any headstones. There's a couple headstones down there, but not really. And they just wanted to sort of clean it up and see if they could, identify any of the residents and whatnot. And while they were cleaning it up, they found this crumbled brick thing, which turns out to be a 19th century Chinese funerary burner.
Oh, okay.
So what they were doing was starting the process of dismantling the burner and excavating around it. So they had a local archaeologist who, he's a professional archaeologist. I know who he is. And he came out and, offered to help. And so I came out and screened and,
So rather than us lay people like destroying it like, archaeology was 150 years ago, oh my gosh, look at all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's like have actual professionals do it so you don't destroy the historical value of it, which is, I think, brilliant. So,
yeah. And so I got involved with that. And then, Joseph Palmer, Judy Palmer, they were part of the original PFRP volunteers. And there was another man named Christian Rousset, and he is an historical architect. And he's done a ton of architect work in France. He's from France and America. And we enlisted the help of Sonia Ng, who's a Bay Area Chinese historian, to sort of learn the history about Chinese funerary burners and, sort of what they were used for and why. And, it sort of ties into, the Chinese population in the 1800s, and sort of their funerary practices and whatnot. And we decided to redesign and rebuild the burner using as many of the original bricks as we could. So we had this whole process where I think it was over the course of a year or two, where we came out on weekends, took the bricks, cleaned them, sorted them into broken and unusable, usable, and then, whatever. So, so we did that. And, the plan was to do some further excavation before we started to rebuild it. And then we ended up forming the Martinez Cemetery Preservation Alliance. It was sort of born of that. Mm-hmm. So we're a 501c3. I think there's 6 of us on the board. With any sort of nonprofit like that, things move slowly.
Yes, I know.
Judy Palmer is a really skilled genealogist, and she has identified quite a few of the residents of Potter's Field, one of whom is Aaron Rice. Aaron Rice was an enslaved man in Missouri and Kentucky, and he came out here with his enslavers, William and Louisa Rice, who are right over there. Okay.
We'll go visit them.
Yeah, we'll go visit them too. And he ended up, eventually becoming a freedman. And he's buried down there. But his Aaron Rice when he was enslaved in Missouri and Kentucky, he lived at the what is now the Rice Tremonti House, and it is a plantation.
This way a little bit.
Plantation that is on the National Register of Historic Places.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so there's some really interesting historical ties to people in the cemetery. So we've managed to do that, and the Potters or the Chinese funerary burner project has sort of been put on hold. We need to work with the city and with the cemetery commission, and COVID hit right after we became a nonprofit, and so that sort of put things on the back burner. And the municipality stuff moves slowly. And so we're just not in a huge hurry to get it done. It'll get done eventually. But right now we're focusing on, ensuring that the Potter's Field is taken care of, and, participating in these biannual cleanups that the city hosts. Ecolampus Vitus is also a big part of that. I think actually they're the ones that put these on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So you guys have a lot of participation from the local community and stuff like that. Well, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this is a pretty good show for all volunteer organization. I mean, this is. I know sometimes it ends up being three cranky people that are tired of doing it all themselves. And
no, we get a lot. A lot of volunteers come from the Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
Because they're interested in genealogy. They have the Mormons in Utah have like the largest genealogical database in the world. And so a couple of years ago, we actually had a huge group of volunteers come out, and we took photos of all of the markers and geotagged them, because what we want to do is create an interactive map so that people can go onto the city website or to our website and find their decedent and know exactly where they are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be fun. Wow.
Yeah.
So we didn't get a chance. If you want to, you can talk briefly about what you do now. I realize we just bypassed that. Went to the fun part. So
the professional part of my life.
Yeah. So tell us briefly about that. I mean, it's like you actually make a living paying your bills as an archaeologist.
I do.
So,
yeah.
And I don't know. I'm kind of biased towards, California. We really don't have a ton of history, but we really have more than we.
Oh, we have a ton of history.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a ton.
So then that's my bad.
Yeah.
It's like, which I mean, I remember I did a trip to Barcelona some years and years ago for business, and I was fortunate enough to get a chance to stay longer than the actual trip needed to be. And I'm like you're walking around with stuff that's 1,000 years old,
right,
or 1,500 years old, really.
Right.
And so that I kind of was like, oh, we got no history, but
we do. Our post-contact history,
yes,
is shorter.
Yeah,
but Native Californians lived here for millennia.
Well, longer than that. I mean, and that's the thing, is my bias is towards what did we write down, and so I apologize, folks. So just
no, I mean that's not uncommon.
Yeah,
that really isn't uncommon. I mean that's normal to think.
So talk a little bit about that part of it. I mean, as like that pre-contact archaeology. I mean, do you work around that stuff at all?
Or? Oh, absolutely.
Okay, because I know with DVC is we're repatriating some of the Native American artifacts that we have, and I know that's quite a process, because it's who do you repatriate it to and all that good stuff. So talk a little bit about that, kind of like what kind of stuff, history we have and things like that, because again, this dumb guy, is like, hey, we got no history, and it's like, oh, well, actually we do.
Well, I work for a cultural resources management firm, so essentially, sort of the short version of that is we do policy compliance. So cultural resources fall under the environmental umbrella of environmental policy, and so in California, you have the California Environmental Quality Act, and there's laws that govern cultural resources, and then at the federal level, you have Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, and so everything we do is sort of governed under those, two large policies. And, we have contracts with federal, state, and local agencies, and we do all of their CEQA and Section 106 compliance for them. So a good example is Caltrans. Caltrans is going to widen a rural state route. And so they say, we're going to do this project. Here's the GIS, the Geographic Information System data of the project area. We take that data, We do background research, which includes contacting the California Historical Resources Information System and finding out what previously recorded archaeological resources are in the project area and around the project area, what previous studies have been done there. And that helps us decide sort of the level of effort that we need to put in going out there. And typically the baseline level of effort is survey. So you go out, you conduct a survey of the project area to see if you can relocate any of the previously recorded resources, if there are any there, and identify any new ones. And then depending on what you find out there, that might go into what's called like extended phase 1 testing, where like if you have, you identify a Native American resource on the surface, you see some artifacts on the surface. Now Caltrans is going to want to know, is there anything buried? Mm-hmm. So you do throw in a couple of holes, a couple test pits for presence, absence. And then depending on what that comes back with, it moves into other stages of investigation. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we do all of that on their behalf.
Well, again, this is this dumb guy. So, I imagine archaeology, for whatever reason, and I knew it was more sophisticated than this, but it's like everybody has a picture of Indiana Jones.
Of course, yeah.
And it's like,
who doesn't want to carry a whip and wear a hat?
Well, yeah, but I don't see you. Well, you're wearing a hat, but not that one. But you also don't have a whip unless you're trying to get these people to do stuff. It's just like, don't it. But I'm thinking back, it's like, so you're taking GIS, as part of it, you're taking a lot of stuff that doesn't involve putting a shovel in the ground. It involves understanding what the world of that you're looking at mm-hmm. looks like, and then what the soil underneath looks like, right. kind of the history of it, and how that overlays and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of puzzle pieces. You have to sort of like look at it holistically. You have to look at everything. So, like for example, if you have a small project area and you don't have any Native American resources, and I'm using Native American rather than post-contact period, just sort of as an example, you don't have any pre-contact resources in your project area, but you have a really big habitation site, like a really large site within a quarter mile, there might be stuff that, right? You think about, because like site boundaries, what we record as a site boundary, that's just what we can see, right? Or that's just what was in our, our project area.
Yeah,
like they're kind of arbitrary.
Well, and the thing is, too, is there's the town here, or the village here, or the settlement here. Well, kids wander off and do stuff, right? So, they're going to drop things and right. things like So, I think about my grandson. He's 12 now, but like even when he was young, it's like, oh my gosh, you got to chase him down.
Yeah.
So, and you obviously love what you do. You're very knowledgeable. Yeah. I imagine. So it's one of those things where if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, mm-hmm. right? And even when you're dealing with government agencies and stuff like that, which can be a challenge sometimes. And everything moves at the pace of government, which is, I work in the university space, so it's kind of like, yep. And you just smile a lot and nod and it'll get done.
Yeah, so, the company I work for is 100% woman-owned. They've been around for over 30 years.
Okay.
It's a small business. We have offices in Folsom, Berkeley, and then Hawaii.
Nice. Do you get to travel to the Hawaii office?
I do not.
Bummer.
Hawaii is great, but honestly, Hawaiian archaeology is really hard.
Really?
Well, there's a lot of lava rock, and it just destroys your everything.
Okay.
Your shoes, your pants, your skin. Yeah. So it's challenging. And it's different over there. So I'm really knowledgeable about California archaeology. I don't have a lot of knowledge about Hawaiian archaeology, so I would be very green over there. Like, methods I could do, but knowledge of the history of the area, I wouldn't have much knowledge about.
So that's really where so if you were moved to, like, say, the East Coast, you'd have to basically start again from zero, even though you have the technique, but you don't necessarily have the history.
You're right. I would have to do a lot of reading before I got out there.
Okay.
Yeah, because in North America, the United States, the contact period started pretty early over on the East Coast, and it started, pretty late on the West Coast. But the indigenous peoples that lived in the area, they were all very different. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of diversity, and, sort of in Middle America and on the East Coast, you have sort of larger tribes, these sort of larger political units. And in California, because of the geography here, the tribes were smaller. They were more like, they're referred to as tribelets. Mm-hmm. So they were these sort of smaller political entities. Mm-hmm. And California was really diverse before contact. I think there was over 500 recognized tribes and 500 languages spoken. And of all the languages, of all the indigenous languages spoken in North America, 20% of them were spoken in California. It was now California.
Because there was just so many little. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I think again, dumb old guy. No, seriously. I mean, this is just kind of the way, it's like, because, my understanding of American pre-contact is just, there was the Great Plains and they were all one. And then there was, the Navajo and the Apache and that was all one. And then there was the Aztecs and that was all one. And then as I've gotten older and a little more interested, it's like, no.
Yeah.
They're way more diverse. And it's like, now you're, apparently I'm going to have to take some classes. So.
Yeah. Well, I think, yours and my generation, we were taught more like a broad, history of Native Americans. I didn't really learn anything really detailed until I went to college as a full-blown adult. And I at Berkeley, I was really lucky to train with, one of California's top Native American archaeologists. His name's Kent Lightfoot. He's incredible. He's done a ton of work in California. He's written like these really incredible books that talks about the Spanish mission systems and the effect they had on Native peoples and, sort of the Russian fur traders up at Fort Ross. And, he's just,
Well, I grew up in Alaska and in Anchorage. And even then it was funny. I mean, I was a kid as we moved back down here when I was 10 or 11. And it's like there was Indians and Eskimos, and we knew them as distinctly different not tribes, but
groups.
And then amongst them, there were even some segmentation, it's like you go down along the Pacific, along Skagway and Juneau and things like that. It's like those were definitely more related to, Seattle and they had the totem poles and all that good stuff. Again, and then you get up the Eskimos had, the mucklucks and the furs and the boats and stuff like that. And you get inland and it's a completely different set of rules for that. So.
Right. Well, like even California. So, you have like sort of north of here, like Mendocino, Lake County, you have the Pomo. That's the big group. But even amongst them, you had the Southern Pomo, you had the Eastern Pomo, the Northeastern Pomo. And because their, ecology and geography was slightly different, they had slightly different practices. Their languages,
kind of like Southern California and Northern California, we root for the Giants, they root for the hated Dodgers, right? Sorry, folks. But again, I can see where the Pomo would. Now here, specifically in this area, what did pre-contact look like?
Pre-contact was primarily Ohlone here, the Ohlone people. So in this part of, and they lived, there was mounds all along, the Bay Shore, which Nels Nelson mapped in like 1906 and 1907. There's a lot of shell mounds and, they subsisted on diets of, fish and, terrestrial animals. The native peoples of California were incredibly skilled at taking care of their land. And they really had this balance. They used fire as a tool to, keep vegetation, overgrown vegetation at bay and also sort of replenish the soil. They just had this, they lived here for so long that they had really developed these skills and they knew how to take care of and care for their land in a really holistic, we could learn a lot from the practices, and we should start employing some of them. But so the Ohlone, would be here where we are. I think the tribe that represents this area that we're standing on is the Confederated Villages of Lijon Nation. They are a non-federally recognized tribe. Most of the California tribes from Sonoma down to Santa Barbara and even down into San Diego are not federally recognized.
Is there a particular reason or?
Spanish mission system.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So the mission systems came in, they kidnapped Native peoples, brought them to the mission, forced them to stop speaking their language, cut their hair, and abandon all of their cultural practices. And it really disrupted their culture. And then on top of that, we had Alfred Kroeber, who was a noted anthropologist. Kroeber had good intentions, but he significantly stepped in it when he basically said he evaluated a bunch of tribes in the Bay Area and said they don't have any cultural continuity. And so that prohibits them from being federally recognized. And that wasn't true. They did. They just kept it, it was hidden.
On the down low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a huge population of tribes all along the coast of California that just don't have they have state recognition.
Okay.
And so if you're doing a state-funded project, you're required legally to consult with them. And most federal agencies, even though there are non-federally recognized tribes, they still consult with them on projects. But
so it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's complicated.
Okay.
And federal recognition gives you land. You're considered a government. You're your own nation. You're your own nation, and so you have more rights than a non-federally recognized tribe.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now.
Yeah.
We'd be here for hours.
Yeah.
So let's do this. So I want to, because I still got to talk to Judy and Joseph, because I've known them forever. And I do want to get a chance to kind of let's take a look at this, but are you ready to give us a little tour?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, let me get pulled off the stick here and we'll go do that. So we're back on. So let's give us a little bit of a tour here.
So this is the main cemetery. We believe the cemetery was established in 1850 or 1851. That's when the first people were buried here. And it was primarily, it was the early pioneers, early, American colonizers that came over in search of gold. And
we have the Rankin from Rankin Park, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of famous names in here.
Wow. Okay.
I believe John Muir's in-laws are buried here.
Okay.
The stripe. What is it? I can't remember their name. I should have looked that up beforehand. But yeah, John Muir's in-laws, I believe, are buried here.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So that guy is from World War I. Okay. There's another Rankin.
Yeah. These are young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody that wonders why a vaccine should be given, this would be probably part of the reason.
There you go. 5 years old.
Yep. Sorry, that was my other political comment.
Yeah. I agree with you. So.
Okay. Oh, and there's all the bricks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the Potter's Field. All the markers have numbers. The records are a little spotty.
Yeah.
On this.
So where do you find the records for this?
Well, that'd be a good question for Judy.
Okay.
That'd be a really good question for Judy. Judy is fantastic.
Okay.
She is, if I need anything sleuthed, Judy's who I'm going to ask.
I get to talk to them anyways. Because like I said, we've known each other for a long time. So
here's a Potter's Field resident that we were able to identify.
So you were able to identify them through the sleuth work of the fabulous Judy Palmer.
Yep.
And so then did you guys put in this restored, obviously this is newer than the rest of them.
Yeah. I think, no, an outside group paid for the headstone.
Okay.
So he was Greek, clearly.
Yeah.
So the headstone is in Greek on this side and it's in English on this side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. This is spectacular. And then the Chinese.
Yeah. So here's the Chinese funerary burner. It's filled with sandbags to sort of keep look at the little lizard. Oh. Sort of keep the shape. But yeah, here's, so this was, it's just sort of a crumbled pile of bricks. And we, took it apart piece by piece and, cleaned the bricks.
And you have a couple markers right up against them. So I guess that's kind of interesting.
It is kind of interesting.
Okay.
And so, when we proposed because Chinese funerary burners all have altars.
Right.
This one does not have an altar. And so we don't know if they never put one in because it was, a smaller burner than is typical of these, or if it, was stolen or damaged or just crumbled into the ground. So we wanted to put in some sort of very shallow test units and around there to see if we could come up with anything. Obviously being cognizant of the fact that there are human remains here and we don't want to disturb anybody or anything. But yeah, so that's the goal. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we're hoping to get this done at some point. Yeah, so we'll see.
Okay. And here's all the bricks that are...
Here's all the bricks. But the interesting thing about sort of the history of the Chinese in Martinez, there was a really robust Chinese population in Martinez in the 1870s, 1880s. Mm-hmm. They pretty much all worked at the fish factory. And then in, I think, April of 1882, there was a big race riot, and they were all run out, and all of the papers report that it was peaceful and there were no injuries, but that's not necessarily true. Not even true. We know it's not true. But the interesting thing about it is that happened pretty much a month to the day before the Chinese Exclusion Act was signed into law in May of 1882. So you can see at the local level, sort of, this sort of unrest that was going on with people, being frustrated with, basically just being racist towards the Chinese.
Yeah.
So here are our bricks.
Okay. So now one of the things I did want to ask about, so it looks like there was a gate here at one point, or a fence.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Other than the one post. And somebody got buried right next to it, so.
We have original plot maps. The cemetery used to extend. So this is now East Bay Park's land over there. It used to extend over there.
Did they move everybody, or we don't know?
We don't know.
Okay.
We have the original maps, and there was several lots with lot numbers, and so there is a marker over there.
Okay.
I do remember seeing it at one point. I'm not exactly sure where it is now, but there is
well, I'm not going to crawl through the hieracantha and the holly to find it. So,
but yeah, so the cemetery did extend over there at one point, and then when the land got
around. So here's Aaron Rice that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. So again, oh my gosh, he was 87.
He was 87. So yeah, he lived a long time. He was born enslaved and lived, I think, the first half of his life as an enslaved person, and became a freedman. Not immediately after coming to California, but, at some point after that. And
so this is his marker number here. And then later on, this marker was put on here, obviously. Yes. But it looks like it even got broken recently. So.
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of in rougher shape than it was last time I saw it. But.
Okay. Well, cool.
Yeah,
and then do we know where the Rices were?
Yeah, so the Rices are up here.
Okay.
So here's an interesting historic thing about the cemetery. So I mentioned previously the mounds, the shell mounds of the Bay Area. We looked at one of Nelson's shell mound maps. The cemetery is awful close to a mound. So it is likely that
we're standing on
a Native American burial ground too. Mm-hmm.
So, not that we're going to, but how would we deal with something like that? I mean, do you move these people to dig down to find the?
I mean, no, you leave everything.
You leave everybody there.
Yeah,
okay.
Leave everybody as is. I don't know if we're exactly on the shell mound, but it's awful close.
Okay.
But the shell mounds were really cool. They were all along the bay. The big Emeryville shell mound is very, everyone knows about that one. But they were, sort of ceremonial. They acted as burial places, and they were also ways for groups to communicate across the bay with each other. Using fire and whatnot.
Cool. So let's continue on to the Rices.
Yeah. There.
Oh my, these are
William and Louisa.
And they've been cared for very well. There's father and mother. And
yeah, there used to be something on top here.
Yeah.
You can see the broken concrete and the sort of metal rebar that held something on there. So we don't know what that was, but
probably an angel or something like that. So
yeah. So the Rice family apparently, I don't know if you know about the sort of the ice cream Victorian in Walnut Creek.
Oh yeah,
they owned that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that was theirs.
Well, let's see. This is 1904, so this area was still pretty open, so which would explain why they ended up here as opposed to like right down the street from their house. So, okay.
So this is the oldest non-native cemetery in Contra Costa County.
Oh, wow.
And so I think this one, I don't think there were a lot of other, sort of mainstream or, central cemeteries in Contra Costa County back then. I think, regardless of whether you lived in Martinez or Walnut Creek or, Concord or wherever, like this is where you were buried.
Okay. Well, so tell me about the MCPA. What does that stand for? And by the way, I have to say, let's introduce Joseph and Judy Palmer, who I've known for longer than I care to say. I mean, not in a bad way, but it's been a while. So I think that ages us all. And then, sir, you are?
I'm Greg Heil.
Okay. Hey. So talk a little bit. Shauna's been nice enough to give us a. We got that part out.
That's right.
Well, I was thinking that John Muir came through. So Shauna's been nice enough. She's been giving me a little tour of this and kind of explaining kind of how she's been involved and stuff like that. So how did you guys get involved? So, again, like I said, I've known you guys for a long time.
So I was thinking, I knew you would ask that. And so
I gave him kind of the brief, I got involved with the Potter's Field restoration, which you guys were part of, and sort of the MCPA was born of that.
Okay. Right. So it all started, we were approached by somebody in the city who wanted to rebuild the Chinese funerary burn, which is in Potter's Field. Right. It's where all that brick comes from. And so that was probably 2008, 2009. And the reason we were approached is because we had background in Chinese Chinese medicine. We knew about the 5 elements and stuff. I mean, and it's not like we're experts or anything. They need something, and so that's why they thought, well, hey, you could know more about the burner. I knew nothing about the burner. What Chinese summit is in the Chinese cemetery and all that kind of stuff. So we did our due diligence. We started out with, okay, we'll just take the we'll deconstruct what was there and to preserve it and see what else we can find. And so and that started as and I should also say too, when we were looking at the burner, we noticed the rest of the Potter's Field. I didn't know anything about Potter's Field. I didn't know what this was. Well, we can't just do this. We have to do all of it because it was a mess. If you see pictures from what we originally took, there was so much debris and branches and things like that. It was yeah. So that's how we got started, and we started putting it out there. I started the Potter's Field Restoration Project. Went through the Martinez Historic Society. Was a part of them, and then it kept growing, and we realized we can't just focus on Potter's Field. We need to take care of the whole cemetery, and that's where the MCPA was born. And how Shauna got involved was when we were still the Potter's Field Restoration Project, was when we were excavating the burner. And I created this thing of archaeology days, and we'd have to encourage people to come out and help us excavate the
public archaeology is very important.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to emphatically state that.
And I think you had maybe emailed me or maybe not.
I sent you a message, yes, and was like, I'm an archaeologist in training. And you were like, come on out.
Yeah, what the heck? Well, all welcome. And then she brings all of her friends. I think you had 4 others that came here or something.
Yeah, I brought some people.
Yeah, and the old saying, many hands make light work. And I think we had that thing done within 2 or 3 days. Deconstructed and cleaned and so forth. And we have pictures of that too, the process. So
Judy,
yes.
Word on the street is that you are the queen of detectives over here and figuring out who's where.
Right.
So
right.
I know you've been doing this for a minute or two.
Yeah.
We'll just say, but it's like, what's the process that you go through as your...
Well, what I did, I started almost 7 years ago now, is I took, which is behind you, the 2000 map of all the people that are buried here in Alhambra Cemetery. And what we found is that we were getting phone calls from descendants, their ancestors here, but they weren't on this list. And so the city was telling them, well, they're not in the cemetery. And it was frustrating me. So as a hobby, it started out, okay, I decided to take on the whole list and restore it. And so 7 years in, we have found things like over 500 misspelled last names on the list, duplicates.
Triplicates.
We have found over 500 people that were not on the list. Okay. And it's a genealogical process to do it. So we have over 2,000 obituaries already that I have found through the newspapers.com, Ancestry. We use all of those websites in order to try to restore it.
Go ahead and introduce yourself. All right. My name's Joker, and I'm a member of Chapter 13, Joaquin Marietta. Little history about how we got started. Back in the days of the gold rush, they didn't consider the Clampers upstanding enough citizens to join the social clubs at the time. So we formed our own club in jest as a joke to that. And here we are, hundreds of years later, still going. Our chapter is about to celebrate our 50th anniversary.
Wow.
Next year, we started out in Clayton, and we've been in that parade there for 49 years now. Next year will be our 50th year. And we've been doing these cemetery cleanups since around 97 and maybe a little before that.
Okay.
So that's pretty much in a nutshell what we are and what we do. There's like, I believe 51 chapters in 7 states now.
Okay.
So we're
all right, Shauna, you were absolutely a wonderful hostess. Thank you very much for having us come out here. It sounds like you're having way too much fun with something that started off as, "Ooh, this looks interesting."
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, thank you so much for asking for me to share my experience. Yeah, I feel like I got really lucky. You change careers sort of late in life, and it could go either way. I feel like I found the pot of gold, kind of the unicorn, So I'm very grateful to have landed where I have, and I love what I do.
So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, maybe to come talk to a class or something like that, how would they get a hold of you?
They can email me, which do you want to just provide that? Shauna Mundt at gmail.com.
Okay.
ShaunaMundt at gmail.com.
Okay.
Yep. Feel free.
And if people want more information about the cemetery here,
martinezcemetery.org. We also have a Facebook page, Martinez Cemetery Preservation Alliance, also known as the MCPA. And if you're interested in my professional work, you can go to pacificlegacy.com. I also forgot to mention, I just accepted a part-time teaching position at San Jose State. Oh. So I'm going to be, I know we totally skipped over that.
Wow.
Okay. So I'm going to be teaching a couple upper division anthropology classes at San Jose State next year. So adding,
to do this again.
Yeah. So adding lecturer to my resume.
Like 2 hours into this.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I gotta put this out. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
So, from I don't know what I'm going to do to DVC to now you're going to be teaching.
Yeah.
Wow. That's exciting.
Yeah. And the teaching thing is just, sort of I'm only going to be doing like 1 or 2 classes. So I'm going to keep my permanent, current position. But this is just sort of, see if I like it. If I like it, I'll continue to do it. And if I hate it, then I only have to do it for 1 semester. So
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate it.
Exciting. And it's like, I didn't even know how big this place is.
Yeah. It's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
So. All right. And we'll call it that.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to DVC Alumni, where every story inspires the next, the podcast for the DVC Alumni Association. You can contact us at alumni@dvc.edu with any comments, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe to our podcast.